What's up, guys, and welcome to another Bone Genie vlog. In this entry, I wanted to talk about the country I'm from, right, and not the country that my ethnic background is from, rather the country that I was born into, which is the United Kingdom. And just what I think about it. I was originally going to just rant about it, but I thought I might as well balance it out with things I think are good about it, but then the kind of major problem areas that this country has in relation to other countries, right? Because recently, as I mentioned, I went to Japan and Hong Kong, and it's just when you go to other places with differing systems and cultures from your country, then you kind of have a bit of objective perspective over your own country and just the problems that it has and everything like that. So I guess this is also kind of a discussion between the differences of the differences between the UK or the Western world, Western culture and Eastern culture, like Japan, Hong Kong. Western culture is very cynical. It's very intellectual. It's very cerebral. Not to say people from the East can't be intellectual. It's just that their intellectualism is more kind of it's more kind of it's more kind of aggressive. You could say the Western kind of intellectualism is more aggressive. It's less rooted in one's kind of subjective experience, and it's more kind of up in the atmosphere kind of a thing. But the thing about Western culture is it's more trusting, in a sense. So it's more kind of open in a sense. It's more kind of Western culture values politeness a lot. Manners and politeness, and you could argue that because I was in Japan, Japan values politeness as well. But the politeness in Japan is more, is derived more from respect and protocol. And preserving the order, as opposed to Western politeness, which is more to do with interpersonal respect, right? You could argue that there is a degree of interpersonal respect in Japanese culture, but the Japanese culture, in terms of politeness, is more to do with respecting boundaries, whereas there's more of an individualistic feel to the Western culture, right? Western culture is a lot more individualistic also, right? They're more kind of sensitive. The Western culture, funnily enough, they're more particularly in the UK, they're more sensitive about things like inequality, victimization, disenfranchisement. Where people are taken advantage of. Things like that. Tree hugging. And Eastern culture differs a bit in the sense that it's kind of more strict, right? And again, this is the difference between the politeness that you might find in Japan and the politeness that exists in the West, in the UK. Things are more strict in a physical sense, in the Eastern culture, right? Where you have to adhere to tradition. You have to adhere to the established order. There's no I don't feel like it, or I have my own ideals and I have my own individualistic kind of take on life. No, you have to like fit into the established order. You know, you have to respect tradition. You have to respect where you're from, right? You have to respect the culture. That's you know that's Eastern culture, right? and people are kind of more practical, you know, in the sense that like, you know, like to them, like it's about getting things done. Over here, it's less about getting things done and more about like personal comfort and like, you know, and statistics, you know, like the Western world, like you know, records statistics for statistics' sake. Like they do it for this, like you know, kind of like they do it like just because, like it's kind of like, you know, a fetish of theirs, you know. Whereas like in the Eastern culture, they actually need to get things done. They value like, you know, actual like effectiveness in that sense. Where like if they are to keep statistics, the statistics are secondary to like things getting done. So that like you could say they're more pragmatic in that sense. So like the Eastern culture is more strict, but in contrast to the Western culture, which is more cynical, the Eastern culture is more open-minded, you could say. It's more innocent. It's less cynical. Like that's why like you'll find more weirdness in Eastern culture. Like you'll find more like kind of like weird cultural things. Like particularly in Japan, like you know, Japan is like the land of like weirdness. You know, of like weird shit that like, you've never seen before, because they're not cynical. Like they're open. They're innocent. Like they're kind of like earnest in the sense that like, you know, like they don't mind like trying new things. It doesn't matter what the thing is. Like there's no like kind of stigma attached to anything like weird. You know, over here, like if you do anything remotely weird or like socially awkward or something like that, then like you'll get berated by it. Like people will like call you all kinds of names. You know, like they'll like affix all kinds of like personal like affronts. Like they'll just attack you. You know, like and try and berate you and stuff like that. Whereas like you know, yeah, like you know, you get bullied in school for being weird over here. Whereas like, I guess, you know, you could argue also that like bullying also exists over there, but like it overall it's more like open-minded, it's more accepting. You know, they're less cynical over there. You know. And so like you have like obviously like there are you know, there are certain aspects of the culture that are more that are kind of more aggressive, and there are other sides of the culture that are more tender or more open, right? And this is how the contrast works between these two different cultures, right? But anyway, I thought I'd just open up with like a bit of a thing, you know, because I think about these things as well, just the differences between cultures. Being like a British-born Chinese person myself, I've you know, first-hand experience of like integrating two different cultures, right? So like I have like a bit of insight in terms of that. But United Kingdom, like, you know, again, all of the things I've listed, like the pros of it, like, you know, like it's easy going for the most part. You know, like there's no like kind of like pressure to like be a certain way, to uphold any traditions, to like not shame your family, you know, that kind of thing. Like, you know, you do what you do over here. You know, like you have your own rights. You know, your individual rights are very important. Like there are fucking trade unions that take the shit really seriously. You know, so like you're okay, right? So like for the individual, it's okay. You can do your own thing as long as it's not too like, you know, outrageous and outlandish. You know, as long as it makes logical sense, I guess. Like, you know, again, the Western world is very abstract. Like it has to fit into like the philosophical view of the Western world. Like the Western world, I guess you know, in like is very philosophical. You know, it holds its philosophies very firmly, very solemnly. Whereas like Eastern culture is more kind of fluid in that sense. You know, like as long as like you know, like I don't know how to describe it really, like in a simplistic way, but like it's less philosophical over there. You know, it's more kind of like more down to earth, I guess you could say. Like, you know, they didn't have like any like overarching like view of the world. If anything, like their kind of philosophy is pragmatism over there. You know, getting things done, family, you know, loving your family, loving your friends, you know, like doing your bit for the society, you know, and it doesn't go much higher than that. Whereas like the Western society like goes really ham with like, you know, philosophies and like what is the meaning of life, you know, how should we view existence, you know, which philosophical argument is like which philosophical stance like do you resonate with, you know, that kind of thing. These sweeping like, you know, these like really grandiose ideas about existence. So like you can already tell that like I'm kind of a bit of both, right? I have the kind of sweeping philosophical like kind of like psyche. I don't know if that's the right way of putting it, but like yeah, I have all of these like big philosophical like episodes myself, but then also like I know that like another aspect of reality is about like honoring yourself, honoring like the people in your life, getting things done, you know, being true to life and that kind of thing. But yeah, so what else? UK is I guess more warm in a sense. Like I'm not exactly sure if that's true in London, where like many people I've heard online say that like, you know, Londoners have like no like emotional availability to like strangers and that kind of thing. And I guess that's kind of true in a sense, but like in general, like, you know, including the rest of the UK, like, you know, Western people are very like they're very open to meet. They're very friendly, you know, to like strangers and things like that. Not to say like people from the East aren't friendly. It's just that like Easterners kind of like keep more to themselves, I guess. Like in the sense that like they tend to like they're more cliquey, like Eastern people. You know, like if you've gone to university or things like that, and like there was always like the group of Asians that don't socialize with any other race of people, just themselves, right? You know, they just happen to be like that more. You know, they're more cliquey. Yeah, whereas like, you know, Westerners tend to be more like outgoing in this sense. You know, like they're more willing to befriend strangers and to trust strangers, whereas like Eastern, you know, Eastern people are less trusting of strangers. Let's just say, you know, in some cases, a lot less trusting than strangers, and of other races actually. So like that's the kind of Eastern version of racism, is that like they don't necessarily trust Easterners, like you know, people outside of their race. Yeah. So yeah, you know, you'll probably get by a lot easier over here. You won't be like, you know, outcast so much over here. Yeah, but then like the negatives, there are probably more positives, but like I'll move on to the negatives. Like negatives primarily is that like particularly the UK, and I guess this also applies to America, but to a lesser extent, is the UK is a moocher country. You know, the UK in particular is a moocher country, in the sense that like it rewards mooching. You know, and I guess like, you know, yeah, again, you know, America, but maybe perhaps to a lesser extent because like America's a bigger country. It's also capitalist, so like there's more people like there's more of like, you know, there's more ambition over there. And also like it's slightly different. Like, you know, UK people I would say are more cynical. They're more skeptical. You know, whereas like Americans, although they are cynical to, you know, compared to like, you know, Eastern countries, like America it tends to be more open minded than like UK. Maybe even places like Australia. Like, you know, America is definitely the most open minded. Being like essentially more of like, you know, it's more of like a mix of cultures. Whereas like you could say essentially that Western culture originated from Europe, you know, and then like America just built upon it. But yeah, you know, like so like if you're like a hardworking person and you have ambition, like it's tough here, man, because like the country is not going to reward you. You know, someone who is hardworking and is law abiding, and you know, and looks to like contribute to society in a deeper way. No, they're going to reward people who fucking mooch. You know, they're going to reward off people. They're going to reward people who like who play the victim role. You know, but like really they don't do fuck all. You know, like all they do is like they get benefits. You know, like government state benefits, and their whole life is predicated on that. You know, they have no ambition. They take shortcuts in life, you know, at the expense of other people. You know, they don't really care. And you know, the UK wonders why they get so many bad immigrants. You know, like it's because you fucking reward like moochers, right? Like you don't like. There's no. It's not necessarily that they reward moochers like at the expense of, you know, people who work hard and have ambition. You know, obviously like that's what they want. You know, the ambitious people, but like in reality, like they tend to like focus more attention on the people who are like bitching and complaining, like, oh man, like look at how terrible my life is because of the government and because of all this shit, and like all these fucking people, these fuckers who like complain and whinge, but then all they do is mooch. You know, at the end of the day, like they're not going to step up at all. Like all they do is fucking complain. Like the country places like more like, you know, focus on those people and not enough focus on the people who are actually like, you know, okay, I'm going to work hard. I have ideas. I have ambition. I want to like add. You know, I want to like get involved in the market. You know, in the industry. But like it's tough for them because like the fucking country is inundated by moochers. You know, so that's the major thing that like I really discovered about England, which is a shame. Yeah, really, that's it. You know, like it's skeptical, it's cynical. Like comparatively, like, you know, England is always like compared to like a place like America, where at least people like, you know, like you know, like they come up with new ideas. You know, like they like to set up enterprises. They like to go, like, you know, start businesses. You know, they like to make things and create and stuff like that. Like over here, it's like kind of like, obviously there is a bit of that. You know, there's always like, you know, ambition. You know, people always have ambition, but like it's like the prevailing kind of like attitude is like no, it can't be done, or like why are you fucking doing that, or like, you know, like what is that, you know, and like sometimes it's not even direct. Sometimes it's just like, you know, people don't really care, and you don't get like that kind of like friendly competition, or like kind of like that kind of infectious like energy of like, you know, like let's make something, let's create something, like let's make this thing, you know. There's none of that over here. Like people like, yeah, go to the pub and have a drink on the weekend, you know, just go to their job in the daytime, just sit at home, watch telly, you know. That's like the average lifestyle of like the white, like, you know, like the standard like British person, like white British person. But then anyone who comes to this country really like falls into that kind of like a thing. Anyway, like they just like kind of live their lives very very like like, you know, mundane. You know, they live very mundane lives. Like they'd rather not rock the boat. You know, their life consists of mostly just complaining and bitching about shit. You know, and it's like anyway, yeah. I think that's enough. Like, there's enough bitching and whining about my own country. Bitching and whining, oh, the irony, right? No, but anyway, I thought I'd just like kind of share that opinion about the UK. You know, aside from that, like, you know, it's a shame. You know, the things that I've highlighted are a shame, because obviously nowhere can be like, you look at, you know, anywhere could be better. It's just like when you look at like, you know, what's holding the country back is like, you know, like all that's needed is like just like a bit of faith on the government's part, because the government has the power to like make the rules. There might be pressure from like fucking like businesses and things like that, and banks, but like, you know, I don't know, perhaps there is, you know, that tends to be like the kind of like popular theory is that like, you know, banks and businesses run the world, and I'm kind of inclined to believe it. But at the same time, I'm like, well, you're the government, man. You fucking run the country. Like, you know, like I know you're trying to like kiss everyone's ass, but like, you know, like if you really want the country to succeed, like all you'd have to do is just like change things slightly so that like it like the country became more of an environment where like people who have ambition can step forwards, not being suffocated by the fucking like like you know, the countless people who like all they want to do is come to this country, or like indeed like, you know, who are already in this country, who just want to fucking mooch and like take shortcuts and like just like fart the like just fart for the rest of their lives in their fucking chairs like watching television. It's like ugh. Yeah, maybe I should move out of UK. I don't know, it's an option. Anyway, I thought I'd share that with you. I hope it was insightful, I guess, you know. I thought you, hopefully you might like relate to it, I guess, if you're from the UK. But anyway, that's been my entry. I hope it's been insightful. Catch you in the next one. Peace out.